Live from Naples, this is the Morning Break with Jane Ritter.
Morning, everyone. So happy to see you all here this morning. Again, another sunny day in Naples. Surprisingly, because we've just had the most terrible time with the weather. How are things where you are? This morning, I have Steve Sharp. I'm really looking forward to chatting with him.
Live from Naples, this is the Morning Break with Jane Ritter on Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live at ttradio.org, or to join in the conversation, download the Podbean app and search Teachers Talk Radio. Follow the hashtag TTRadio. Tune in, talk it out with Teachers Talk Radio.
And a very good morning to you. I think I can see my guest, but he hasn't quite connected. A little suggestion, Steve, go out and come back in again, and I'll just keep talking until you get here. Can't wait to chat. For those of you who don't know Steve has been in EFL for over, I won't say how many years, but since 2005, since he graduated. He is a teacher trainer, and has taught in many countries around the world. But I will leave that up to him to tell you. He's connecting, and I think, is that you, Steve?
This is me. Can you hear me?
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. I couldn't even get into my prelude. Not only are you a wonderful teacher trainer, and an IELTS expert, I was about to tell our listeners that you are also a foodie, which is where we probably immediately connected.
Yes, definitely.
But I'll let you expand on that as you tell us a little bit about your teaching journey, because it's a fascinating one. Do you want to just tell our listeners how you got started?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for inviting me on this radio show. I love this
such
radio
a
show.
pleasure. It
is such a pleasure to have a catch up with you, my Sunday friend.
Exactly.
I was thinking the other day, we haven't had a Sunday chat in a very long time. So how did I get into teaching? Excuse me. I think I kind of fell into teaching. I don't think many ELT professionals set out to start in this business, this fascinating business. I'd always been inspired by different cultures, traveling, languages, and from the age of 3, the only thing I wanted to do was to be a flight attendant. Wonderful. Travel the world, tea, coffee, hot towels, careful they're hot, sort of thing.
You speak quite a few languages, don't you?
So yeah, I speak French and Spanish, and obviously English. So yeah, I've got a flair for languages, and I always wanted to use them and travel, and that's what I wanted to do. It wasn't until I got to university, where I was studying French and Spanish, that in the second year, excuse me.
It's okay. Everyone's got a throat like that at the moment. It's just
it wasn't until the second year of university that I discovered TESOL. I was like, well, TESOL, what is this? And I read the module handbook, and I noticed that it was 100% coursework, no exams. I was like, right, I'm doing it just based on that. And I loved the second year. It was great. The third year was spent abroad for Erasmus in France and Spain. And then I came back to do my final year. And basically the final year of the TESOL degree was an extended CELTA course. And it was during that time I was like, well, actually, I kind of like this teaching malarkey. I think I could do this. And just talking to the lecturers about their experiences of having taught abroad, learning different languages and traveling, I was like, yeah, I think I could see myself doing this. And it was during the last year that I had to decide, all right, I'm gonna be graduating at the end of this academic year. What am I gonna do? And all of my friends around me were applying for these graduate schemes and taking years out, getting a gap year and doing masters. I was like, that just doesn't interest me at all. And I remember talking to a couple of friends who had worked as language assistants during their year abroad, all organised by the British Council. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I think I could do that. So I applied. I really wanted to go to a French-speaking country because my French really wasn't on par. It was awful. So I applied and I thought, do I go to France or do I go to Belgium or do I go to Canada? And I was like, well, I've never been to Canada. Why not? I went for the interview in London, and I got the job.
Wow.
So I graduated. I then flew to Montreal, beginning of September of 2005. 2005, it just sounds so long ago, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, but I mean, you're as old as you feel. You're as old as you feel.
Exactly.
To me, it just seems like yesterday.
And then, so I worked as a language assistant in a French-speaking college on the south shore of Montreal, and I was working with the low-level college students, so 16 to 18-year-olds pre-university. But I also taught some evening classes, English evening classes for the continuing education department. And I loved it. It was great, hands-on experience. I had a good laugh with the students. I was like, okay, this is my calling. And I spent the summer there and managed to get some work at a language school downtown with all of these international students who wanted to improve their English. And I was just amazed at how much fun I was having and just learning so much more about teaching and from others, etc. And I loved it so much that I decided to stay for a second year. So I did
Wow.
2 years in Montreal, and then I moved back to the UK of September 2007.
How did you find living in Montreal?
I loved it, Jane. Such a cosmopolitan city. What I loved about it was the mixture of French and English and how it's all kind of like mixed together, and everybody is bilingual. There are so many different things to do in Montreal. It really does cater for everyone's desires. And it was just a fantastic city. Easy to travel around.
But in winter, you sort of travel underground a bit, don't you?
Yes, the winters in Canada, let me tell you, Jane, the winters in Canada
I've experienced
are
it.
awful. I mean, I think the coldest it got while I was there was minus 36 degrees.
Oh my
And
gosh.
yeah, but the country still goes on. They have the infrastructure to deal with that. And I remember I lived about a 5-minute walk from the metro. And that morning, I walked to the metro. I didn't have my scarf, and I walked into the metro station, and I noticed I had like icicles on my eyelashes and on my nostrils. I was just like, Steve, absolute idiot. But yes. So digressing, but it's all good. So I moved back to the UK September 2007, and I thought, okay, what am I going to do? I'm back in my hometown. Do I apply for jobs abroad? Do I fulfill one of my dreams of becoming a flight attendant and apply for like an airline? And as I was thinking about that, I saw an ad in the local newspaper that the local college were recruiting EFL teachers. And I was like, this is a sign, just roll with it, Steve.
That's when you used to find jobs in the newspapers. Yes.
Exactly. So I did, and I got the job, and I ended up teaching at the college for 4 years. I did a PGCE, which is a postgraduate certificate of education. It's for teachers to become qualified to teach in colleges and schools in the UK. So that was part-time over 2 years. And as much as I was enjoying being in that environment, I started to get itchy feet, and I was getting a bit bored of being back in my hometown. You know what it's like, Jane. You've been abroad, you move back, and nothing has really moved on. People are still doing the same things.
Same things, yep.
And that's fine. Each to their own at the end of the day. But I think having lived abroad, my horizons had been, broadened. And I was like, this just isn't working for me. And it was at the start of my last year at the college that I decided to do the Cambridge Delta, and that was going to be my last year, and I wanted to go back abroad. So I did the Delta just to really give me, kind of like make me stand out from the crowd.
Yeah. Super qualified, really.
Yes. And it was during that year I started looking at jobs with the British Council, and I remember I was sat in the office at work one evening, and I was trying to prepare for my evening class, and I was just really kind of like down, deflated, demotivated, and I was looking at the jobs the job lists on the British Council website, and I was like, wow, I could be in Kuwait right now, or I could be in Malaysia, I could be in Colombia, and I was like, why am I here? Like, there is another world out there. So I did the Delta, I applied for several jobs, and I had always wanted to go to South America. And a couple of people who I did the Delta with were actually working at the teaching centre in Caracas in Venezuela, and they said, we're going to be recruiting for September, so just be patient, something will come up. And I had
Wow.
several interviews: Bahrain, Colombia, Malaysia, and Venezuela. And I was accepted for all of them apart from Venezuela. And I remember I still hadn't heard from them. And I remember sending them an email saying, okay, this is the deadline that I need to reply to these jobs. My preference is to go to Venezuela. And I was waiting and waiting. And I remember I was teaching a community class on a Saturday afternoon, and it had finished. And the deadline to respond to these jobs was 2 p.m. And the class finished at 1:45. And I was like, okay, just write the email and just accept like either one of them. It was as I was writing the email that I got a phone call, and it was from the office in Venezuela, and they were like, we're really sorry, we've had IT issues, blah, 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 but we would really love to hire you, you've got the job. And
Fantastic.
I just like broke down in tears. Obviously, I wasn't upset, but I was shocked, but so excited at the same time. And that's when the kind of like my 11 years abroad began, and the rest is really history.
How long were you in Venezuela for?
I was there for 4 years.
Wow.
So I started off as a teacher, and then within a year I was promoted to a coordinator position, and then after that to a senior teacher position. So less teaching hours and more admin. So looking after timetabling, payroll, all those types of things. And in the last 2 years I was looking after the adult program, so the materials, the tests, but also line managing teachers, doing inset sessions as well. So it was great fun. And then after that, I moved to Tunisia with the British Council again, and I was there for 4 years. Great opportunity. Tunisia, had never been on my list of places to go to, but I'm so glad that I went. Very Mediterranean feel to it because it's close. I mean, it's you have the Mediterranean Sea there, so you have the French influence because it was a former French colony. You have an Italian influence. You have an Arabic influence as well, and it does feel very European in certain parts of the country, especially with the food. The food is very seasonal.
Favorite Tunisian dish?
It would be kefteji. Kefteji is a mixture of vegetables that have been kind of like grilled and then put into this like spicy tomato sauce with lots of garlic and harissa. And they have like the French baguettes, and you dunk it in, and it just tastes sensational.
Oh, wow.
Beautiful. So I was there for 4 years, and during that time I did a lot of CPD. I had done my master's in ELT in Venezuela before moving to Tunisia. I did a marketing course to further understand like the whole process of how a teaching centre works from the customer service, from a customer's perspective, but also from a more business perspective. And that really helped me to understand how what we do in the classroom affects the business, etc. I did a lot of teacher training, so observations, being a Delta, a local Delta tutor for teachers who were doing their Delta course. And then during my last year, I trained up as a CELTA tutor.
Okay.
My goal, really. And then after those 4 years, I moved to Bangladesh. That was June 2019, and I moved there on a promotion. So I went from senior teacher to a deputy teaching centre manager. So kind of like a deputy principal, if you put it into a state school context.
Well, the one that gets all the work, isn't
exactly.
it?
No, totally, Jane, totally. Yes. And I wasn't doing that much teaching in Bangladesh. I was mainly behind the scenes, overseeing the academic quality of all of the products that we offered for young learners, adults, teacher training and corporates, but also deputising for the teaching centre manager. So I had my foot in kind of like the business context or the business side of the teaching centre, looking at figures, forecasts. So yeah, it was it was a great experience. But during that time, I realised that actually I do love being in the classroom. So yeah, no, it just,
Yeah.
if I had the
I
choice, between sitting in front of a computer and replying to emails or dealing with spreadsheets, or being in the classroom and interacting with the students and having a good time with them, obviously I'm going to choose the latter.
I hear you. I remember when I was senior teacher here in Naples for the British Council,
Yeah,
and we didn't have a deputy DTCM. We just had the director, and then there were the
right.
two senior teachers. So we
Yeah.
basically acted as TCMs. But
Yes.
the and, I mean, I think it was a good thing. Something we and my colleague agreed on is that it's always good just to keep at least one or two classes, because if you don't do that, you kind
Yeah.
of lose perspective of
You
what's
do, and I
going
think
on.
as a teacher trainer, I mean,
Mm,
you're a trainer as well. I
yep.
think it's crucial that you keep your foot in the classroom, because you can't lose touch with what goes on in the classroom,
And for
especially
me,
since
they were just the most enjoyable hours of the week.
yes,
No
yes,
one, no grumpy teachers, no
no,
grumpy customers,
no,
um,
no,
just you and the students, and it's
yeah,
just wonderful. Yeah.
yeah, no, I completely agree, completely agree. Yeah.
You were saying, sorry, before I cut you off.
Yes, so yeah, I was 3 years in Bangladesh. That was a great experience. And again, as I said with Tunisia, I had never thought about going to Bangladesh. The opportunity arose and I took it, and I'm grateful that I did. But it was during that time, obviously, the pandemic hit. It hit the ELT community hard, as
Yeah.
you know,
Mm,
and I think it really made me. I think it made me realize what I really wanted to do in life, what I enjoy, what I'm good at, what I don't enjoy, what I'm willing to put up with. And at that time, things were a little bit rocky with the British Council, as well as with
mm.
all businesses in the ELT world. And yeah, I took the decision to, say, all right, goodbye to the British Council. Thank you for the opportunities that you've given me, but it's time to close that chapter and start focusing on something that I enjoy and really want to do. And that's why I decided to come back to the UK.
Wonderful. Just before we move on,
Yeah.
living in Bangladesh,
Hmm.
what was that like?
It was different, let me tell you,
Like,
Jane.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah. There was, so we had to live in a specific area of Dhaka for security reasons.
mhm,
And that area was very secure because there were lots of, well, there still are lots of embassies and high commissions. So security, there's kind of like increased security. Um, there are parts of Dhaka which we weren't allowed to go to. That's fine. But the parts that we were allowed to go to were green. There were a lot of parks, lakes, beautiful.
mm,
The difficulty of living in Dhaka is the amount of traffic. And when I
right.
say traffic, I mean traffic like you have never seen before, Jane. So I lived about 10 kilometers from the teaching center, which was downtown next to the University of Dhaka. Beautiful area. And in the morning, we would have a minibus, or I called it the Benga bus, that would come and collect us from our apartments and take us to work. And that probably took about 40, 50 minutes.
Wow, but it's only 10
Coming
minutes, only 10 minutes away.
Exactly, exactly. However, to do the return journey, which is only 10 kilometers, after work, it would take between an hour and 3 hours. And you would never know how long it was going to take you because traffic is so unpredictable. Sometimes there are kind of like rickshaw strikes, maintenance on the road, the monsoon season, the rain just brings the city to a complete halt. So you finish a day of work, you're like, right, have I got water? Have I got snacks? Have I been to the toilet? Is my phone charged? Have I got like a little travel pillow in case we're in there for 3 hours? And all these things are going through your mind, and you just don't know how long it's going to take you. And that was something that just really, really kind of like
After
got
a
me
while, that
down.
must get a bit annoying, really. I mean,
Definitely. And you do that 5 days a week. I mean, it's just, and you can't plan anything in the evenings either
mm,
because you don't know what time you're going to get home. So yeah, that
And that
aspect.
must have been very stressful for you. I mean, how did you organise dinner parties and dinner in
Well, it would have to
general?
be at the weekends, you know.
Okay.
Or
Yep.
thankfully, I had a couple of close friends who lived in the same building as me, so we could easily nip in and out of each other's apartments. You know, would you fancy a quick gin and tonic? Yes, get a little takeaway sort of thing. You know, so that was great. But yeah, the traffic really did cause a lot of problems. But on the flip side, one thing I really enjoyed about living in Dhaka was the amount of international clubs that you can have access to.
Mhm.
So you have like the British club, the American club, the Dutch club, etc. And they all have swimming pools, tennis courts. They have alcohol. Alcohol isn't readily available in Bangladesh because
Mhm.
it's a Muslim country.
Yep.
Fine. And it was just nice to be able to go for a swim on my day off, meet up with some friends, have like a pub quiz, etc. So, you know, I think if it weren't for those international clubs, I think the social aspect of living in Dhaka would have been very different.
Mm. Wow. And so now you are back.
Yes.
How is that going?
Do you know, it's going really well. It is going really, really well.
Wonderful.
Everything is falling nicely into place. I remember my last day in Dhaka, I was kind of second guessing my decision to leave the British Council and move back to the UK. And I was really, really apprehensive about that. And I remember saying bye to friends. I was a complete mess, Jane. Thankfully, I didn't have any mascara on. I was a complete mess. And it wasn't just because I was saying goodbye to friends who I'd formed close relationships with. I think it was more to do with the fact that I was saying goodbye to an international lifestyle that I'd come accustomed to for the past 11 years. And the thought of going back to my hometown where nothing has really changed, people really haven't moved on, and kind of feeling like I was a teenager again back in my parents' house. But I knew, you know what it's like.
I do know. I know exactly what it's like.
Yeah,
And I mean, my decision to stay was obviously it was simply based on the fact that I have family here,
yeah, yeah,
and I couldn't just up and move them.
yeah.
I'm not unhappy with that decision because I love living in
Hmm.
In Naples in particular, because
Yeah,
there is still very much that spontaneity that you bump into someone, you have a
yes,
coffee, or
yes,
you might see someone while you're out shopping, or let's go and grab an aperitivo.
yeah,
Whereas at home, it's very you book people in for coffee. If I know I'm going home, I have to book them a couple of months in advance, and
yes.
it's
It's crazy,
very
isn't it? Yeah.
it's really organized, and
Hmm.
at times I do appreciate that, but I'm more for the sort of crazy spontaneity that is
Definitely. I
living in
completely agree.
Italy.
Yes, yes, that, yeah. And you do have that when you're living abroad.
Mm.
And yeah, it's not like that here, actually. It's funny you've just mentioned that. I was talking to a friend this morning trying to organize a meetup before Christmas. Completely impossible. You know, it's kind of like, can't do this weekend. No, got this. And yeah, it is that forward planning constantly. Um, but on the plus side, there are things that I do enjoy about living back here. I
Mm.
think I don't have to compromise on certain aspects of my life in order to integrate into society. I think when you live abroad, there is a compromise. There are certain things that you have to kind of not do in order to help you integrate into the culture that you're living in,
Mm.
and interact with the people. And I no longer have to do that. And I think that comes with age as well.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm turning 40 next year,
Well,
and
you don't look at it.
thank you, thank you. It's the genes, thank you. And I think as you get older, there are certain things that you're just not willing to put up with anymore. You know,
Mm.
if I think about the things that I used to get up to in my 20s and my 30s, things that I would think were okay, that's fine. You know, I can put up with that. I think about them now. I'm like, sorry, no, no. So on that side, I am
It's
happy to be back in the UK, and also reconnecting with the UK and seeing how it's changed since I
mm.
last lived here. obviously I came back and visited, you know, while I was abroad. But to actually live here and get back into the daily routine of being here, reconnecting with family and friends, being part of their daily lives and not, you know, seeing them every 6 to 8 or 10 months and having a snapshot of, you know, oh, so this happened in the past like 8 months and bam, that's it. And you move on. So, yeah, and just really appreciating what the UK has to offer. Things that I used to take for granted when I was living here.
Great. Steve, we're just going to have a quick break for the news,
Yes.
and then we'll get on to everything IELTS and training.
Oh, exciting.
If you could just mute yourself, that would be great. See you in a bit.
This show is brought to you in partnership with John Catt Educational, a leading publisher of books, directories, educational guides and magazines specifically aimed at forward-thinking schools in the UK and beyond. Have you checked out their latest releases? Don't miss out! Visit johncattbookshop.com to explore their full range of titles and advance your own professional development today. Happy reading!
This episode of Teachers Talk Radio has been made possible with support from Witherslack Group, the UK's leading provider of SEN education and care. They're here to support you too through an ever-growing offer of free resources, including webinars, podcasts, articles, and events aimed at supporting teaching professionals like you. Visit their website at www.witherslackgroup.co.uk to find out more. This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News.
ITV News reports on the workload of educational psychologists in Gateshead, who say they are overwhelmed as the number of children needing special educational help has risen by 117% in 8 years. This has placed a strain on SEND services in the area, but the load has been especially large for EPs. Deborah Mason, Service Manager for SEND in Gateshead, said that there had been a wait for some people to complete their doctorate, although assistant ed psychs have been used to enhance the team. This report comes shortly after the Secretary of State for Education in England, Gillian Keegan, sent a message to the education and care sector about SEND reform. In the message, Ms. Keegan said she believed that pupils and students should always be able to get a high-quality education and receive the right support. She acknowledged the challenges of a complex system, but said that her department wanted to take time to listen to children and parents, as well as those in the system, before publishing a response to the SEND and Alternative Provision Green Paper. An improvement plan would be published in the new year, she added. Part of the plan would include investing £21 million into training 400 more educational psychologists. For young people in areas like Gateshead, this funding can't come soon enough. The BBC News website reports on claims that the University of Derby has suspended a student for taking her baby into lectures. The female student is halfway through a degree, and a tutor had agreed to her taking her son to lectures as a short-term measure, but this was later overruled. As the student was breastfeeding, she felt she had no option to continue, but was suspended 2 weeks ago. The student believes she has been discriminated against because she has a baby, but stated she had never allowed her son to disrupt the learning of others. A university spokesman said areas were available on campus for those who needed to breastfeed, but that taking a baby or child into lectures was not allowed for health and safety reasons. Meanwhile, Ulster University has defended itself against claims that it plans to open a campus in Qatar and that will have a negative impact on LGBTQ rights. The university is due to open the campus in Doha in January next year. Speaking on BBC Radio Ulster, Hannah McCulloch, chair of the LGBT Society on the university's Coleraine campus, said she is worried that the university is putting financial gain over a community within their community, and that it will damage the establishment's reputation. A spokesman for the university said, Ulster University believes that education is a route for societal growth, and that many UK universities had partnerships with countries across the Middle East. In Wales, the government has announced free Welsh lessons will be extended to the entire education workforce, including non-teaching staff. Alongside this, a new framework for Welsh in English medium schools has been published, underlining how the Welsh language is integral to the new curriculum for Wales. A sabbatical course is also available for teachers to learn or improve their Welsh. Minister for Education and Welsh Language, Jeremy Miles, said, "We want everyone to enjoy using the Welsh language. We are ambitious for our language, and I am pleased to be able to extend the offer of free Welsh lessons to all school staff." Finally, in a week that saw the release of Department for Education statistics, which show a 20% drop in those entering the teaching profession, many media outlets comment on the possible impact on young people. The number of entrants to initial teacher training fell from 36,159 to 28,999 between 2021 and 22 and the 2022 to 23 training years. The government attributed the fall to the reduced number of new entrants and an increase in the target. But critics pointed out that the government's recruitment targets for secondary school teacher training has been missed in 9 out of the last 10 years. A DfE spokesperson said, "For teacher trainees in 2023, bursaries and scholarships in key subjects will be available, and we remain committed to raising the starting salary to £30,000. This has been your Teachers Talk Radio News with Joe Fox.
This is 2 Minute Tech with Steve Woods, your tech briefing on Teachers Talk Radio.
Hello, did you get a bargain on Black Friday? This week I'm going to talk about deals. First, a little bit of history. Tom will be proud of me. Reading up on Wikipedia and seriously condensing what I found, the term Black Friday refers to the Friday after Thanksgiving when the Christmas shopping season starts. Supposedly, it started in the 1950s. Recently, it marked a time of serious bargains, riots and fighting for unbelievable deals. However, are you getting a bargain or are you just led to believe it? Seeing as last Friday was Black Friday, which began last Monday, and next week will still be Black Friday, or for some stores Cyber Monday or Cyber Week, when you get the best deals online, how do you know a price drop is actually a deal? Well, the short answer is you don't. I have a couple of pointers here that may help you, but the underlying advice is buyer beware. If I go with the best known online retailer, when using Amazon, there's a nifty little price tracking website called Camel. This will show you the price data for a product over the time it's been advertised. You can see when it was more expensive and less expensive. If you're on your phone, where most shopping takes place, hit the share icon found next to the product image, go to Camel and paste it into the search box. You can even sign up to email alerts for price drops and add target discount alerts if you're not in a desperate hurry for an item. The next trick is to simply do a web search for the product. You may find it cheaper in a large supermarket store, and although you may need to go and collect it to save on postage, it may be worth the journey. There's also hundreds of coupon and price comparison sites where you may be able to find further discounts. The only caveat being the time you spend researching may actually outweigh the saving you make. I return to my initial warning. Buyer beware. I hope you get a deal leading up to the holiday season. As always, I'd love to hear your favourite shopping online tips. Let us know at TTR 2022. I'm Steve Woods, and that was 2 Minute Tech.
2 Minute Tech with Steve Woods, your tech briefing on Teachers Talk Radio.
And we're back.
Yes,
Steve,
we are back.
Join me again. Okay. You do a lot of teacher training and you do a lot of IELTS.
Mhm.
And I think IELTS is probably something I noticed when we posted this conversation. We had quite a few questions about teaching IELTS. Just to get started, what are your 5 top teaching tools?
My 5 top teaching tools. Referring to teaching in general or specific to IELTS?
I think there'd probably be a little bit of overlap.
Yes.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
Teaching tools. First one for me is the whiteboard, or a whiteboard in the classroom with some coloured pens, preferably black, blue, and red.
Not green, hard to see.
Not green, hard to see. Yep. I'm quite a visual person, so I like to colour code my whiteboard. So black is for any type of writing, blue is for new vocabulary, red is for anything related to phonology, so recording stress bubbles, intonation contours, phonemic script, etc. What I like about the whiteboard is that it's always there. It's never going to fail. You know, I'm tutoring on a face-to-face CELTA course at the moment at a local university, and the trainees are freaking out when like the computer freezes. As, I've got all my work.
I've got my PowerPoint.
My PowerPoint. Yeah, death by PowerPoint. Don't get me started, Jane.
Yes, you
But
can
the
teach without
whiteboard,
it.
you can, and like fantastic teaching has been happening, forever. So yeah, whiteboard, anything you record on there, the students will record in their notebooks, and also it's just so versatile. You know, it's not just for recording, like recording language. You can play games with it as well. You know, it's a great tool. It's always there, and I love it. So that would be my top one. Second one would be a Google Doc. I do love a Google Doc, Jane. I really, really do.
As opposed to a Microsoft. Microsoft doesn't seem to have that option, do they?
I think they've
Do
got
they?
out. I honestly don't know. No. What I love about Google Docs is the fact that they're collaborative,
Yeah.
especially for writing. I do a lot of online teaching, so I tend to use Google Docs for collaborative writing tasks, focusing, let's say, on, okay, how do you paraphrase this sentence, or how do you write an introduction based on the IELTS writing task 2 rubric, but also for peer correction. So using a checklist when students are maybe correcting a paragraph or peer correcting a paragraph. Is there a suitable range of cohesive devices? Is there correct punctuation, etc.? And you can just see it all happening on the screen. It's fantastic. So yeah, Google Docs would be number 2. Number 3, Zoom. I do love Zoom, especially for online teaching. I've used Microsoft Teams, and it's just a bit too clunky for my liking. I don't know if you've had any experience with it, Jane.
I just tried a lesson last week.
Oh, okay.
Because I started at another university, and they use Teams, and there was a strike, and some of the students asked to have the lesson online. And the thing that I found really annoying about it is that when you're teaching, you can't actually see your desktop. You can't really see the students interacting. But apart from that, they're obviously working to get it similar to Zoom, but I would have a net preference for Zoom, or even Google Classroom.
Google Classrooms, Google Meet,
Google
that's
Meets
good.
are fine. Yeah.
One thing I found really clunky about Microsoft Teams was having to create channels because they didn't have the breakout room option. And I was like, no, I'm sorry, I can't do this. I think I'm quite a tech-savvy person.
I think they have since introduced that.
They have, yeah. It's still a little bit clunky. Sorry for all those Microsoft Team lovers out there. But yeah, I think for me, Zoom all the way. It's smooth. There are lots of functions. It's easy to use. So yeah, that would be number 3. Number 4, WordWall. Have you come across this website?
Yes, I do like WordWall.
I've had so much fun on WordWall, Jane. I've lost hours of the day creating games and interactive activities, but it's just so much fun. My favourite activity to create is the spinning. What's it called? The spinning spiral.
Yes.
Great, like communicative teaching activity. Like set them up in breakout rooms. Somebody shares a screen and they just go for it.
Exactly.
And you go in from you go into one breakout room to the next, and they love it. Like teenagers, adults as well, across the board. It's so much fun. So that was number 4. Number 5. I don't know if I could consider this a teaching tool, but I'm going to go with it anyway. I'm all for using authentic materials.
Very much so, yes.
And a specific app that I do like using, and I encourage my students to use, is the BBC Sounds app, because it gives them access to a plethora of podcasts. I love podcasts. They are so they're so insightful. They cover a wide range of topics, and it gives the students examples, real life examples of how English is used on a daily basis. They're rich in language, and there are so many things you can do with them. So, an app. I don't know if that's a teaching tool,
Yep.
but I'm going to
I
choose
think
it anyway.
yes,
If
it
that
is.
would,
Yep.
yeah,
Yep, I've done quite a lot of work with podcasts and podcasting, not just here but also with my students. So I really support that as
yeah,
a tool. Certainly, the transition from online from during the pandemic online
yeah,
teaching to get students really working together and also
yes,
learning about their interests.
yeah, exactly,
It's a great way to do it.
yeah.
Definitely. So you obviously you're doing a CELTA at the moment, but you're also doing quite a lot of IELTS preparation.
Hmm.
How do you support students preparing for IELTS?
I like to focus on the mindset of IELTS. I think there are a lot of misconceptions of what IELTS is, how it works. A lot of students think that you do an IELTS preparation course, let's say a 30-hour preparation course, that automatically means you'll get a band 9. And it really doesn't work like that. Students need to understand, and teachers for that matter, that IELTS is an evaluation of a student's current level of English. It's basically a snapshot of where they're at the moment.
Mm.
And when students want to get, let's say, a band 7, they need to understand that their general English level already needs to be at that level in order to achieve that band score. So I do a lot of kind of like mindset work with them and constantly remind them of this and what IELTS is and how it works. And also, my formula to IELTS success is exam familiarization with language development. So, exam familiarization is all about understanding how the exam works. So how many tests are there? What are the timing for each test? What are the question types? What are the strategies? How is the speaking and writing assessed? So looking at the criteria, but then also focusing on language development. So ensuring that students are exposed to English through reading a wide variety of texts, listening to podcasts, watching TV shows and movies, and focusing on the fact that they need to expand their language through these activities. So focusing on expanding their range of vocabulary, the language structures, the appropriacy of how language is used in specific contexts. If we look at reading, for example, language is always presented in context. There is correct punctuation. The overuse of commas just like drives me crazy. And also, when they're reading a wide range of topics, they're getting different perspectives on different ideas. And I found that that can help students in the speaking and the writing. One of the things that they struggle with is, well, I don't really have an idea about this. But if they've read widely on a range of topics, they're going to get different perspectives, and that's going to help them to come up with ideas.
So it's not just about doing a lot of practice tests, which
Yes.
unfortunately many organizations seem to push ahead of that actual development.
So wrong, isn't it?
I mean, I hear you when you say reading and reading different things. The reading exam is, looking at the statistics of recent exams, it seems to be dropping. And I'm wondering whether that has anything to do with people are not reading enough anymore.
I think it is, actually. I finished, I did an IELTS preparation course a few months ago, and we were talking about, what do you do to improve to practice your English outside of the classrooms, all this and that. And a couple of the students said, yeah, I don't really read. I was like, okay, but you're going to be assessed in reading. Like your reading skills are going to be assessed, and you're applying to go to university. So you need to read.
You will be reading.
You will be reading. You will have to read. Like you're not going to have any choice. And they just didn't think about it. And it's and like going back to what you said about just doing practice test after practice test, it's wrong. Like, it's not going to improve your level of English. It's not going to, expand your vocabulary. It's not going to allow you to use idiomatic expressions and use complex structures, at the band 7 level. It's not. Yes, it's going to help you with your exam technique, managing time, managing your stress levels, but it's not going to allow you to expand your language so that you can show it off in the speaking and the writing exam.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, how are you helping learners to understand what they need to know?
It really is raising awareness of where their language is at and the language that they need to be producing at, let's say, band 7, for example. It's about managing their expectations, saying, right, this is where you are at the moment, this is where you need to get, and these are the areas of language that you need to work on. And it's not going to happen in a 90-minute or a 2-hour class once or twice a week. As soon as you step outside of the classroom, or you log out of the Zoom classroom, that's where you need to start putting in the practice to expand your language and develop your skills, not testing skills, but developing those skills outside of the classroom. And that's what I focus on a lot in my lessons. We use the face-to-face or the online classes to learn about the exam structure, the formats, the techniques, but also practicing the speaking skills and getting feedback on their language. Okay, this was correct, this was incorrect, why was it? I think that's really important for students to be able to progress from, let's say, a band 6 to a band 7.
Yeah, definitely. It's also interesting that sort of looking at the similar statistics for listening, scores seem to be rising, and I wonder if that's due to podcasts or Netflix,
Yes,
or
no, totally. Yes,
it's
I couldn't agree more. I think when the pandemic hit, people were obviously spending a lot more time at home just doing nothing. Right, let's binge watch a Netflix series, as we all did, which I'm sure you did as well, Jane. It's interesting to see how those how the viewing habits have changed and how it's reflected in the exam scores. Yeah.
on a global level, really.
Yes,
Yeah. So, what advice would you give IELTS teachers?
For IELTS teachers, first of all, you need to understand the exam, period. In my experience of teaching IELTS and having worked with other teachers who are new to it, they kind of get thrown in at the deep end and they just follow the course book or a course book. And
there are very many of them around.
There are, yeah. And I think one thing that a lot of them lack is the focus on language development. Teachers need to understand how the exam works, the specifics of it, the techniques, but because students are going to ask them the questions like, okay, how many times do we get to listen to the recording and the listening? Well, might be twice. Actually, it's one. And knowing what the techniques are for the different exam questions and the different tests. So knowledge is key of the exam. Also, teachers need to develop their own teaching skills, especially with IELTS. There are a lot of IELTS teacher training courses out there. Some are better than others. I'm just coming towards the end of one with Fatma Losonsi, who you're going to be interviewing in January, I believe. Her course is fantastic. It focuses on how to develop student skills and not test them. It's interesting what you said earlier about a lot of course providers, a lot of language schools that just keep pushing practice tests. Well, that's testing their skills. We need to focus on developing them. And that's what her course focuses on. And it's been an eye-opener for me. I've been teaching IELTS for years. There are some things that have come up in the course. Wow, why didn't I think of that? Yes, I'm going to include that one. So yeah, I think my advice would be learn about the exam, and develop your exam teaching skills, definitely.
So you're actually starting up your own business as well. Do you tell us a little bit
am.
about that?
Yes. So I'm putting together my own IELTS preparation course. It's going to be online. The speaking element of the course will be synchronous, so live lessons twice a week via Zoom. And then the listening, reading, and writing will be asynchronous. So I'm going to be creating videos thanks to the course that we did at the beginning
Yes,
of
I
this
was going
year.
to say
Thank you,
they will
Jo.
be. They're
Yes.
fantastic.
Yes. So I'll be creating video content and materials for those 3 tests that students can complete in their own time, using my approach of exam familiarisation and language development. And during the course, there'll be a lot of support from me. For the speaking course, obviously it's going to be live, but they'll also have the chance to complete one-to-one speaking practice tests with me and get feedback. They'll be able to have feedback on their writing as well throughout the course. So that's what I'm going to be focusing on for my business. Doing it my way.
For our listeners, I've seen some of the material, and it's really, really great stuff. It also really, as you said, working more with language rather than.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, I agree. Students do need to have some strategies, but a course can't be all about strategy.
It can't because at the end of the day,
they're not
IELTS
going
is an
to move on.
evaluation. Yes,
Yeah.
it's an evaluation of your current level of English. So you've got to develop that language.
Wow. Steve, people who inspire and influence you.
Oh, I think I'm going to answer this question in 2 parts, if that's okay.
Yeah.
In general, there are a lot of people that have influenced me throughout my life, especially those that focus on, breaking down discrimination based on gender, ethnicity, sexual orientation, faith, etc. Just to give a few examples, like Rosa Parks, Dr. Martin Luther King, focusing on the struggles of racism. Sports players like Tom Daley, Keegan Hurst, who came out as gay, and they're breaking down those stereotypes that, professional athletes can be homosexual and they can still, do
Be
the
successful.
job. They can still perform, exactly. Actors who have come out as well, Luke Evans, Zach Quinto, Jodie Foster, who are breaking down the stereotypes, of gay actors being able to play straight roles, etc. I think it's fascinating. I take my hat off to all those types of people. But there is one specific person who has really influenced me over the past 2 to 3 years. It's a man called Joshua Becker, and he's the founder and creator of a website called Becoming Minimalist. So the whole concept of minimalism has been around for a long time, but there's a lot of misunderstanding around it. People tend to think that minimalism means living with the bare minimum and depriving yourself of all things in your life. But actually, it's not. It's about changing your mindset to focus on what you really need in life and what's going to, and how that's going to bring benefits to your life. And just to give a very, very quick example, it was interesting what Steve Wood said earlier about the Black Friday sales, etc. Joshua posted 2 quotes saying that for Black Friday, if you didn't need it before Black Friday, you don't need it now, it's on sale.
Yes.
And another one is, no holiday should manipulate you to go into debt to show others how much you love them.
That's very, very true.
And I think this whole, that mindset has really influenced me. It's really changed my perspective on life, not just from a materialistic level, but just life in general.
I think my radio colleague Harry Waters posted something quite similar on Black. He said, "I'm writing this very short blog post about Black Friday." And it went something like, "Don't buy things you don't need."
Yeah, exactly.
And that's it. It was a very short blog post, but it was a very effective one.
Yes, short and straight to the point. Yes.
Yeah, no, I mean, as we're sort of going into Christmas, I hate it. It's just
I'm more about creating memories and spending time with people.
Yeah.
You know, it's I'm not against giving presents. You know, I've got a younger brother, I've got 2 young nieces. Like, I get it. It's, you know, it's exciting for them. But for me, I just want to be able, I would rather go out and go to a spa with a group of friends, or go out and have a lovely meal with some friends.
Yeah.
Go out for a long hike, you know, in the hills or something, and spend that quality time together. Because, you know, as we said, we're so busy nowadays. It's, yeah. But no, Joshua
True.
Becker, I'm a huge fan of his. He's been really influential.
I'm going to look him up. Yeah.
Yes, do so. Do.
Yeah. Now, what do you hope to accomplish in the next year or so?
I'm going to focus. So from January, I'm going to be focusing full time on my IELTS prep course, and I really want to get that up and running and trying to reach as many people as possible. I want to target on students who are applying for postgraduate studies abroad, but also professionals who already have some work experience, but they want to do postgraduate studies to get, you know, further ahead in their careers. So yeah, I hope that by this time next year, the course will be fully, you know, completed, up and running. So yeah, that's going to be my goal for next year.
It's going to be wonderful, and I wish you the very, very best of luck. Because I've had a sneak peek into some of the content. Will thoroughly recommend it.
Thank you.
Tell us a fun fact that most people don't know about you.
I am a qualified Swedish body masser. You weren't expecting that one, were you, Jane?
How did you do that? I think somewhere in my memory I do remember this. But how do you train to become?
So when I was working at the FE College in my hometown in Telford, after moving back from Canada, the college had a large beauty and holistics department, and they did all types of holistic beauty therapy courses. And because I was a full-time staff member, all part-time courses were free. Now, I've always been a fan of a spa day, pampering. I'm all over that. And originally I wanted to do the reflexology course, but it clashed with my timetable. The only one available was the Swedish body massage. So I did it over one academic year, loved it, and set up my own business, you know, had my uniform, oils, towels, my own massage table.
Oh my gosh.
I went to people's houses and, you know, gave massages there. Mainly back, neck and shoulder massage, because that's the part of the body where we store most of the energy, the stress. But I loved it. Very hands-on, understanding the client. And it just made a change to, you know, from teaching when you're constantly thinking and using your brain. I loved it. And just to clarify for those who are probably thinking about it, my massages were legit. There were no happy endings. Just putting it out there.
Yes, exactly. Now, I know I have a question for you.
Yes.
You have an incredible collection of shirts.
Yes, it's still growing.
Could you just tell me roughly how many you have?
Ooh.
And,
not that many now, because when I moved back to the UK, I decluttered.
No.
Yeah.
Oh.
I have a rule: if I haven't worn something in a year, it goes to charity. So I had, when I was in Bangladesh, I had about 20, which I know doesn't sound quite a lot, but there was some.
It's hot, and you need to wash them every day.
Exactly, and I had a lot of Punjabis, which is the traditional clothes, like attire that men wear in Bangladesh. So at the moment, I think I've probably got about 6 or 7 shirts.
Oh,
yeah.
You've really downsized.
Yes, I downsized. But, you know, there is a high possibility that is going to increase, definitely.
Okay. Do you have a favourite quote? I suppose you've just sort of shared them with us, haven't you?
I do. One of my favourite quotes is by RuPaul. And she says, if you can't love yourself, how in the hell are you going to love somebody else? Can I get an amen up in here? And I think it's relevant for today's culture, because, you know, we're obsessed with perfection, sharing our lives on social media, filters, comparing, etc. When actually, you know, I've come to the realization that it's people's so-called imperfections that bring a lot of beauty a lot of joy to life. And I think if you can't love yourself, then how are you going to be able to love somebody else and, you know, give yourself to them? So that's my favourite quote.
Well, that is a wonderful way to wrap up this show.
Indeed.
It is. It has just been so lovely chatting to you, and we need to resume Sunday chats.
We do. Yes.
Tell me, if students are looking for you, they want to find you. Your website?
My website is www.eltwithsteve.com.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yes.
As a colleague, I would thoroughly recommend Steve's course if you are preparing for IELTS. And I think for now, it's just time to say goodbye. Happy holidays. If you're having them, don't work too hard.
Yes. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Oh, thank you so much for
It's been a pleasure.
coming.
It really has, Jane. Thank you.
And I will chat to you maybe next year and see how everything's going.
Yes, definitely.
Okay,
Enjoy
looking
yourself.
forward to that.
Yes,
You
take
too.
care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.